You are driving on 401, the speed limit is 100, and everybody is driving 110, 115, 120, 105. You decide to be 110, so you may be caught at 10 stop, or you might not be caught, and you would clear the entire 401. You never know. Usually, I tell my clients that it sometimes gives me that idea. I tell them the impact of in dollar terms, and then I ask, is it worth your sleep every night? If yes, then go ahead. So and all the time answer is no, because obviously they might catch you once maybe in 10 years, but for all those 10 years you are sleeping with that fear that I have hidden something, and then you are worrying about it. So it's not really about your mental peace. Fines and penalty. If you give them this kind of reasoning, you would get in a very bad mood, right? The way it works is that they will, if they don't believe you, they give you enough chances, prove it. If you are not able to prove or they are not satisfied, they would give you a tax assessment. That okay, you said that your tax was $1,000. Based on our reassessment, your tax is $10,000. Here is your tax bill. What you can do if you really want to challenge it, pay your taxes, go to tax court and claim it. Fight your case. Sometimes people win as well. There might be some general situations. Sometimes CRA and IRS they do a bad job, or they are not able to understand something. That's okay, because see, they go by the tax law. When you go to the court, they go by the.
Welcome to the Ontario Homeowners Show. I'm Mohsen Lakhani, and this is the show where we get real about what it takes to own, maintain, and love your home. From renovations to raising a family, legal insights to mental health, no topic is off limits. This is about real people, real value, and real conversations to help you live better, right where you are. Each week, I sit down with trusted experts, service professionals, and local changemakers to bring you the strategies, stories, and solutions that make home ownership easier. This is the Ontario Homeowners Show, powered by the Vaughan Real Estate Advisors. Are you ready? Let's go. Aamir, thank you so much for joining us on the Ontario Homeowners Show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Amazing. Tell me a little bit about you. Tell me about Finnection. What got you started?
Okay, so Finnection is an accounting, tax, and business consulting firm with operations in Canada, US, and UAE. And because we are operating in these three territories, and at least Canada and US are pretty much intertwined when it comes to people moving from one country to another. So one of our niche is cross borders, and besides that, we also do personal taxes and the bookkeeping payroll tax for the small business owners. So that's our typical line of businesses in which we operate, is particularly with the reference to Canada. Yeah, so that's what we do.
Amazing. What got you started? Like, of all the things you could have done in the world, what got you into tax keeping and accounting?
Partially, I would say that was luck. One thing came after another, and it brought me to this field. And partially, it was I was a banker, and I wanted to start my own business. Obviously, I could not open my own bank. I can, but yeah, it takes a lot of money.
Now you can.
So maybe let's hope. So I just thought how to branch it out. So one thing I saw is that throughout my career in banking, I was in corporate banking, commercial banking, small business. So was dealing with businesses and business owners, and this is one need I felt which is not often met quite clearly. Where we often used to think, banker will always have a different perspective. For example, when a business owner walks into the branch to get a loan, banker will have a different perspective, and accountant have different perspective. They want to record things certain way, banker wants certain way. So I realized that there's this gap, that there are accountants, but maybe if there's an accountant available who can talk to them in their language, that would be more easier for them to understand and build processes around. And another thing was working with different big banks. Some of them are the global banks. I realized that if I can the knowledge of the process, controls, and all that, if I can bring that into the practice, it can help me, set apart from other competitors.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, we live in a post pandemic world today where everything left, right, and center is completely messed up. Can you share a story where you've helped recently a homeowner come out of a tremendous mess that they might have been in for a while?
It happens pretty much every year. Okay. So to begin with, if you are a homeowner who is a Canadian tax resident and has owned a home and you live in that home, your life is simple. Probably you don't need me until you sell the home and you need to declare that in your tax return. The real mess comes when you are a homeowner, you move to another country. So let's suppose you own a property in Canada and then you move to UAE, for example. Right now, the way you have to treat from tax point of view, the whole thing changes altogether. The same home which is rented by the same tenant, but now from tax point of view, it is altogether a different thing.
Mm,
So, for example, just to give you a brief overview, when you are non-resident and you are earning rental income, by default you have to pay 25% of the gross rent, which is before any expenses, to CRA, and then you file your tax return, you get refunded every year. but there is a way not to pay that and just pay 25% of the net every month. So I'm talking about every month.
Hmm.
If
Yeah.
you know about
Oftentimes a
it,
loss, in fact.
yeah. So I have had these situations where people moved out and they were not aware of this option and they were paying a lot of money while they were in loss. Yes, they will get the money back, but then cash flow wise it impacts a lot. So that's why I told them that these options are available for you and they are pretty good options. And CR is very open about it. I mean, it's not that it's selected that but some they may accept it, they may not accept. They are okay about it. You just have to
Hmm.
follow the procedure and you can get it.
Interesting. So you mentioned UAE. How does that differ from, let's say, I have a like a winter home in Florida? What's my tax implications there?
Nothing because if you own, let's suppose a Canadian tax person who owns a home in UAE for personal use, where he might just go in winter or whatever. So that is perfectly okay, just like you have in Florida. You are
Hmm.
not in case
Okay.
of Florida, there is some tax there, so you pay tax there and you get foreign tax credit here. But in case of UAE, that there's no tax over there. So you will pay tax, but accept that capital gain part on a day-to-day basis because you are not earning any income. I assume it's your personal use. So no tax in Canada. In your Canadian tax return, you need to declare your foreign assets which are more than $1,000. But if it is your personal use property, you don't have. So yeah, practically, if personal use, nothing else except capital gain when you sell.
Can I ask you a question
Yeah.
to put you a little bit on the spot? How does the government know that it's a personal use and not a investment property?
It's a game of Tom and Jerry. One is after another. As a tax professional, I can never say that, don't disclose it. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
if it's a property, then you are having that property for the long term. Uh, in older days, the only way government would know was when you bring it. Otherwise, they wouldn't know because there are secrecy laws and all that. Now
Right.
things are getting more open. Every year, you see those data leaks and coming up, and not just leaks. Sometimes the government are open about it. So one is the property record data, which can get either leaked or shared between the government. Second
Hmm.
is what is called CRS, Common Reporting Standards, and Canada and UAE both are part of that standards. And they do share banking data with each other. So to what extent
Interesting.
we don't know, but they do share. Now, if you have a property in UAE, for example, and that is on rental, where will you get the rent? Obviously, in your bank account, right? If you
Yeah.
sell it, and they go
Hmm.
further, the onus is on you, not CR, to prove that you have a property. If they can get a clue that okay, you have an account in UAE where the balance was X amount at the end of the year, they would come to you and say, "What is this? Tell us." First of all, you are required to disclose all your foreign assets if they are more than $100,000. So money in bank account is a foreign asset. If it is under that, obviously you can say, okay, this was under the reporting, but still you need to tell what happened, how the money came from.
Right.
Maybe it's a that's
Right.
eligibility you'll provide it. But if you cannot, then they can go further. Let's suppose you say, oh, account is closed. I don't know. They will say, okay, your problem. Go and find it out from the bank. Bank is closed, your problem. Otherwise, we will recreate what we want to recreate and impose taxes on.
I think in the day and age of FinTrack reporting, banks getting caught on or getting caught with money laundering issues. I'm not going to name names, but there's a lot more due diligence that's being definitely put in. I remember back in the day, you could go ahead and deposit $10,000 cash, for example, in any bank account, and they're not going to ask you questions, or even sometimes a little bit more than that, and they're not going to ask you questions. The official law, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is anything less than 10K doesn't need to be reported. Anything over 10K, the bank needs to say where the money's going.
Yeah,
Is that
I
right?
believe so. Yeah, yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. But even on that side, even on UAE side, if you have to open a bank account, it's not that easy, right? You have to have, back in the days, having a non-resident account was very common thing. Now you cannot have an account as a non-resident. You have to have a local resident visa, and then you.
Hmm. So how long, let's say, I'm hearing all of this talk about getting a an investment property in UAE. There's no taxes I need to pay. Yes, there are going to be taxes when you sell. I assume there's going to be some form of income tax that's going to be calculated at the CRA level eventually. But let's say I've done it, I'm not getting caught. What's the timeline? How long can I not get caught and get away with it? Or what should I need to be aware of in order to make sure that my obligations are in the clear?
Okay, so to answer your first question, it's just like you are driving on 401, the speed limit is 100, and everybody is driving 110, 115, 120, 105. You decide to be 110. So you may be caught at the next stop, or you might not be caught, and you would clear the entire 401. You never know. Yeah, that you cannot really time when you will be get caught. But so it's better to be safe. Usually, I tell my clients that if some client gives me that idea, I tell them the impact of in dollar terms, and then I ask, is it worth your sleep every night? If yes, then go ahead.
Hmm.
So and
Yeah.
I fines
I
and
think that
penalties are aside.
that peace of mind aspect is how much is that worth it to you as an investor, right? If you're investing outside of the country, you're probably doing it because A, you have the funds or resources to do it, but also you want more freedom of, wherever you want to invest and you want to buy into that, sure. But Uncle
So
Sam is always going to come knocking.
that's true. Okay, and your second question was that how to ensure that you remain compliant. So yeah, so I would refer to again all those property shows happening in downtown Toronto and all the places, for the properties in Dubai, and I also get calls for those and everything. So the common marketing gimmick is okay, it's tax free, tax free, tax free, just get it. Yes, it is tax free from UAE perspective, but and I'm pretty sure the documentation that you sign that would say that they are not responsible for tax advice, right? They are only telling you what is true for UAE. But yeah, you have to, as a buyer, you have to be sure about it and you have to take professional advice. So yeah, it is tax free from UAE perspective to certain extent. I'll come what extent, but to certain extent, it is tax free from UAE perspective. But obviously, if you are a Canadian tax resident, your worldwide income is taxable.
Hmm.
So depend on what it is, right?
Depending on the cycle. Hmm.
Collectively you have to declare everything, right? Not just the asset which is causing that 100. For example, if I have a property which is $120,000, this bank account which is $20,000, so not just that property, both need to be declared. So
Hmm.
first of all, if you cross the asset criteria, you have to declare. Secondly, there's no criteria for income. Worldwide income taxable in Canada if you are a Canadian tax resident. So you have to
Okay.
declare. But apart
Hmm.
from that,
Okay. How does that differ from our friends or who are buying in the US?
I think the major difference is over there you get foreign tax credit because you pay tax in US, right?
Okay.
Secondly, you also have to consider the US's capital gain rules are different from Canadian capital gain.
Right.
So, and even for your principal residence. So, for example, and I have many of those cases that someone lived in Canada in their principal residence for let's say 10 years. It was their principal residence. They moved in the 20th year to US and they sold it in the 12th year in US. And assuming in US they were living on rent. So from
Hmm.
Canadian perspective, it was principal residence for 10 years. So whatever gain they had, value at the 10th year, remaining amount will be taxable, and the first 10-year value is not taxable. Very simple. But
Perfect.
but
Hmm.
first of all, capital gain rates are different. Secondly, cost of the normal capital gain is cost, and I mean selling price minus purchase price plus other expenses. So you have to consider the exchange rate as well, because when US is calculating capital gain, they would see the exchange rate at that time. What was the US dollar value equivalent that you bought it for and you sold it for? So
Hmm.
not just you are eventually your capital gain in US will reflect the property price appraisal, but will also reflect the
The
currency
exchange value.
appreciation or difference.
Okay.
So I mean, yes, comparing to US versus UAE, the major difference is foreign tax credit, which is not applicable in case.
Makes sense. Now, I know a lot of Ontarian homeowners have, they live 6 months here in Ontario or in Canada, and then 6 months outside, maybe US, maybe elsewhere. Would both of those properties would be considered as primary residence, or is it one over the other?
Okay, so for Canadian perspective, only one property can be your principal residence, right? I mean, it's better to, and Canadian principal residence laws are more relaxed. So in that case, I would consider, and assuming he's not renting that property in other parts of the year.
Hmm.
So yeah, from Canadian perspective, they will. It's better to consider that property as a principal residence. And when they sell it, they have to. Let's suppose I have two properties, one Canadian, US, 6 months here, 6 months there. At the end of year three, I sold both the properties at the same time.
Hmm.
So, from Canadian perspective, if my Canadian property is principal residence, then I will pay capital gain tax on the entire capital gain of my US property. And from US perspective, the criteria is you have to live there for 2 years out of last 5 years. So you should be able to meet that criteria, and then you can have one property as a doesn't have to be the same. You can have one property as a principal residence and pay the you can get the exemption up to whatever point they give. Usually it is 500,000 or 750,000, depending on your filing status. So whatever gain exemption you can get, you will get over there. So yes, if you have two properties for both countries, ideally you can have different properties declared as principal residence or same property, but you will pay tax on the other. So that's another analysis you can do at that time. I mean, we can do at that time.
Perfect. Aamir, you're very well versed in the tax laws and accounting side of things, bookkeeping side of things. Who do you feel is your preferred clientele? Who do you enjoy working with the most?
I think when I deal with cross-border clients, that's where because the thing with cross-border is there's no single software I'm dealing with. There's no single tax authority I'm dealing with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, all scenarios are different, right? That's where I feel more challenged and I enjoy it because if you are doing same thing over and over again, I have my own team to do those tax returns and everything. They take care of the routine stuff. So if I also have to do that routine stuff, I kind of get bored. So yeah, those cross-border clients who have made a mess, I like that. I don't
So
want
you've
them to
made a
make a
mess.
mess.
Ladies and
Yeah, I
gentlemen, if you've
don't
made a mess,
want them to make a mess.
contact
But
Aamir.
if you have made the mess, I like you, and at the same time, I feel challenged to do something about it. But disclaimer: not all the time I can find you a solution. I have to abide by the tax laws and two
Right.
countries' tax laws. So sometimes you have made a mess to an extent that it's irreparable. So don't expect me to find a solution all the time and make a mess that okay, I'm able to solve it. It's not possible all the time.
Can I put you on the spot there, Aamir? Talk to me about a situation or a circumstance where you said, I can't help you.
That's
Like
something which
straight up.
happens. Yeah, see, at the end of the day, what a client is going to give me, right? Um, $1,000, $2,000, whatever, depending on the complexity and how many years we are dealing with or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not worth my lessons, right? I would lose my entire source of earning if I go something like that. I'm not a CPA, so in Canada, technically, I don't have a regulator, so to say. But even then, every year I need to renew my e-file number, which requires, and there's a streaming check for that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to
Right.
support one client illegally. And likewise, in US, I have enroll agent designation. That also requires me to renew every year, and they also have their own suitability checks and so much so that if I am a US tax person and I miss my US tax payments, sometimes it may affect my ability to renew US tax license.
Wow. Wow.
So
Okay.
so yeah, so not just I cannot mess others people's. I can not do the illegal thing for others. I cannot do for myself.
Amazing. Good to know. I feel there's a lot of questions that people have in the back end of maybe deciding who to go with. Should I do this? Should I not do this? The advent of AI, you know, if I have a question about something I don't understand, guess who I'm referring to? Right? It's not going to be going through the phone book and finding somebody proficient in it, but maybe asking AI, ChatGPT, Claude, whoever you want to call, and then ask it a question. It may be at least in for me, at least it's finding out how to get onto the right track. But I'm hearing time and time again, AI is going to take over. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so see, in old days or in current world or pre-AI world, most of the big or medium-sized corporate, let's take example of a law firm, right? So because neither you are lawyer nor I am lawyer, so we can talk independently about it without.
Let's throw the lawyers under the bus.
Yeah.
No, I'm
So
just
that
joking, my friends.
you might have.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a defined role in that hierarchy. Associates are the ones who intend to become that principal lawyer at some point in their life and progress in their career. Clerks are the ones who are looking more after the administrative side of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Receptionist, right?
Right.
Will AI replace a receptionist? Maybe yes, for sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure yes. Will AI replace the clerk? To a large extent. Okay. Will AI replace associates? Maybe that lawyer need two instead of four associates
Hmm.
because he can work faster. He can get the for the information that he needed or the opinion that he needed, where he couldn't get from the clerk or admin. He had to rely on depending on the volume. He needed four associates. Now he might need two. But will AI replace the principal lawyer? No, that's my opinion, because that principal lawyer is someone who has gained the years of experience, which is beyond what AI can learn. because the source of AI for learning is, okay, I might be wrong from the technology point of view, but what I know, the source of AI for learning is primarily internet, and then what I feed into it, and then after talking to me, right? For example, AI kind of
Right.
gets
It learns your
customized, right?
behaviors, your knowledge,
Yes,
essentially. Okay.
yes, but AI cannot learn my experience until I tell it AI. And if I ask you to write your 5 years of experience to AI, you just cannot. Yes, over time you might tell certain things to AI just to get the answer more precise, but that doesn't mean it has replaced your experience. So again,
Mm-hmm.
coming back to my industry, there are rules which are given by CRA and IRS, which is or FT in case of UAE. So those tax codes are there on internet. AI can retrieve that information much faster than me. AI can retain much more information than what I can retain, right? But then there are some things which are called rule of thumbs. There are something which are called procedures, right? Which are not written anywhere because I've dealt with so many clients. So let's take one example. For example, becoming a non-resident of Canada from tax perspective, right? If you go to internet, you can search what are the criteria to become non-resident of Canada from tax perspective. If you are a resident or citizen, if you ask in today's world, if you ask ChatGPT, it will search internet. It will tell you, okay, these are the criteria. But because I have worked with so many clients who became non-resident, I know what went right, what went wrong, and if they did something wrong, the mess that they created, how to solve it, how CRA responded to it. When I talked to CRA on that particular case, what was their take? These are the items which are not on internet. These are the items which I
Mm-hmm.
don't even document. They are just in my mind because I did. That's kind of an institutional memory. Maybe my some of that is my memory, some part of that is my employee's memory, and collectively, we can bounce on the idea and we can come up with the best strategy for a new plan. But AI doesn't have it. So yeah, that's my take. I mean, there would be certain tasks which will definitely be taken away by AI, and which is good thing. I just sent an email to just maybe this month only. I sent an email to my employees. So the structure is I have bookkeepers and then team leaders, and then I am on top of it. So I sent email to all the employees, but particularly targeted to bookkeepers. That I don't think after 2 or 3 years there'll be bookkeepers in this firm,
Hmm.
right? And the reason is I don't want to fire you. The reason is either client would be able to do it on its own, maybe, or software will be doing on its own. Or I would need, instead of 4 bookkeepers, I would need one person just to check if the software is done correctly, right? So upskill yourself. I was not threatening them that find another job. The tone of the email was upskill yourself, learn new skills, learn the skills
Hand out.
which requires more than, there are different type of knowledge consumption that you can do. One is the basic synthesis. I take
Mm-hmm.
information from, second
Right.
is you do some analysis, third is you connect the dots, fourth is you can do some, gray area thinking. So the higher you can go in that level of thinking or knowledge consumption, your job is safer. So that in my example, that principal lawyer, he has gained wealth of experience. He is the one who is connecting the dots, who is able to play in that gray area. His job is safer. The admin assistant who was just booking an appointment plainly should have replaced that task already. So yeah, so the more you upskill yourself, the lesser are the chances that you will be replaced. But having said that, it's a great tool. I use it, and I recommend everyone to use it.
Perfect. I think my biggest caveat with AI coming in, the benefits are huge. They're humongous, right? And key of them is making mistakes, or rather AI not making mistakes, or doing processes, menial tasks efficiently without the this is so boring, this is so redundant. But you know what? You can trust AI to do it. Sort of. You still have to check its work. You still have to make sure that what you're putting in is exactly what you want. Otherwise, it's not gonna. The output isn't. If that's not what you want, you've clearly not put in the right input. So there's a bit of handholding required. But I feel the biggest disadvantage that AI, the advent of AI coming after our jobs or our industries or our certain degree relationships, is it takes away the human side of it. So what if we make mistakes, right? AI isn't going to go out there and build these relationships. AI isn't going to go out there and connect person A to person B. Maybe to a certain degree, yes, but it's still going to be up to the human beings to have that relationship, to maintain, build that relationship. So AI is after all of us to a degree, but I think once the dust settles, it's going to be those who adopted AI
in their business and adapted their businesses accordingly, versus everybody else who is either not adopting it, not adopting to it. They're going to be left behind significantly. I think your employees 2 years, 3 years from now are going to be very grateful that you set that.
Another thing I would like to add, it's a very common joke within the tax preparer community that, AI answers you based on your promise, right? So when a client come to us, he is 100% sure that the trip to Vegas that he did is a genuine business expense.
Right.
So think about it. If that person gives this prompt to AI in that way, most likely AI will say, okay, deduct it, right? Because AI depends on prompt. I mean, I am a human being. I know you wanted to go Vegas for different reasons, and now you're trying to write it off. AI doesn't know that. So that's where it's a common joke within tax preparers that till the time prompts has to be given by the client, AI cannot prepare taxes. It would create more deductions and CRA would do more audit of it rather than what a human being will do.
So speaking of Vegas, how do we get away with that? I want to go to Vegas, spend some money, not gamble. I'm not endorsing gambling or any of the other vices there. How do I make sure, not Vegas, but anywhere else, how do I make sure that if it is a business trip, how do I categorize it as such so as I'm maximizing my tax benefit as minimizing what I need to pay?
Okay, see, you have to look at in overall picture. First of all, it's perfectly okay to have that business trip, whether that's Vegas or whatever. But first of all, there has to be a reason to it, right? Secondly, the extent of expense you are recording should be in line with the reason, right? Reason to it is very simple. For example, I had a client meeting or there was a convention I'm on attending, right? Um, that is still doable. The second thing which I said that the extent to which you take the expense or write off should really tally with the reason. So, for example, if your business earns $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year, and you're spending $6,000 in a convention and a trip, doesn't make sense. Maybe for the first year, you just started and you did a training or whatever, and that happens for a lot of those franchise businesses. They have to go and they have to do the initial training. So yes, those are the exceptions. Year over year, you are making $12,000 and you are spending $6,000 on that so-called conference. Not really, on. So that one is the scope and scale of it. Second is you have to be realistic about it. That okay, there is a training for which I'm going to US. I'm going with my wife and kid, right? So just allocate the expenses accordingly. Don't book all free tickets on it.
Right.
I have seen cases where people would say, okay, this is a company, me and my wife are director. So we went to Disney because that's about the future. And you see, I made up to tell them that now I need to file a case against that customer who is not paying. And see, that is the time I called. So again, jobs might be replaced by AI, but trust me, CR and IRS are not going to be replaced by AI. That's a human being sitting there. They are going to listen to this story and they would say, and the problem is that, the tax authorities, the way that work, if you give them this kind of reasoning,
they're
they
going to
would
laugh you
get
out.
in a very bad mood, right? They would try to find 10 of 10 more. If you are not able to prove or they are not satisfied, they would give you a tax assessment that, okay, you said that your tax was $1,000. Based on our reassessment, your tax is $10,000. Here is your tax bill. What you can do if you really want to challenge this, pay your taxes, go to tax court and claim it. Fight your case. Sometimes people win as well. There might be some genuine situations. Sometimes CR and IRS they do a bad job or they are not able to understand certain things. That's okay. Because see, they go by the tax law. When you go to the court, they go by the constitution.
Right.
If there is something in the tax law but that is against the constitution, or somehow the lawyer can prove that this particular clause of freedom of movement is whatever is compromised and all that is stuff, that's a lawyer stuff to do. There have been situations where court have said that okay, tax law says this, but this goes against the constitution so and so principle. So, anyways, but the point is first you have to pay the money, and then you go to court, and then you fight it out. So, paying the money in advance for their assessment, and then paying for the lawyer again, whether it's worth all of that trip to Vegas, or you might just consider that as your payroll you have taken out, pay CPPI on it, and move on, and tax on it, and move.
Folks, this is not legal advice. Please consult a lawyer who's well versed in taxation law before you make any trips to Vegas or Disney. or anywhere else for that matter. Aamir, tell me a little bit about how Finnection helps homeowners beyond just the core services. Are there any educational platforms, programs, seminars that you run and operate?
I do a couple of podcasts at different platforms. That's one way of educating them. Besides that, we do have what we call on our website free initial consultation.
Mm-hmm.
What I tell to clients beforehand on these podcasts or wherever I get a chance, that those initial podcasts are honestly not for the tax advice. That is to discuss the scope of work and pricing and stuff like that. Obviously, my job inventory is tax advice. What I sell is advice. Or
Mm-hmm.
so that
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes, but what I try to do in those 20 minutes is give you a general advice, direct you to different resources. That okay,
Okay.
this is the
Mm-hmm.
I would do this. Sometimes I can tell, sometimes it is so complex that I need to say that I will need this to figure out what I will do. But my cost will remain range between this and this, or for option A, it will be this, option B, it will be this. But at least I understand the situation. I can also direct, and obviously, when I'm discussing the situation, I would exactly tell them that, okay, if you search this on Google, you will find more about it. If you search this on Google or IRS website, you will find more about
Mm-hmm.
it. But to that extent, I can do for free. And then from that point, if you can go on your own, feel free to do so. I don't mind those 20 minutes if that can help you in that way.
Perfect. If somebody is going through a potential issue within their business or investment and they're not sure what to do, should they consult a lawyer? Should they consult somebody such as yourself? What advice would you give them?
So the lawyer's role is more so when an interpretation of law is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
My role is more so when something is established, probably that person doesn't know about it. Like, for example, the same scenario, if you are becoming non-resident, you have a rental property. What should I do? So, okay, I can tell you that. This is the law, this is the tax law, this is what it says. These are the procedures, and this is how to do it. Uh, but if you are a big company and let's suppose you have a question on the interpretation of a particular aspect, for example, there's a different tax treatment for Canadian controlled private corporation. I can tell you the law that if you have done this, then you are under control. But for
Mm-hmm.
this, you have question on in a particular scenario whether this would be considered a resident or not. So that's where a lawyer might get involved. Usually for stuff like estate planning, I normally say go to a lawyer rather than an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
in case of estate planning, I'm that pharmacist. I cannot give you direction, but the fine line should be defined by the lawyer. I will execute it.
So anytime there's an interpretation of the law required, consult a
Yeah.
lawyer. If you want to know what the law is, maybe have a chat with a professional in accounting.
Yeah. I mean, even if they don't know, I can at least tell them, okay, there's a law that this particular procedure we are going to follow to become non-resident. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if he has a situation where the law is silent or that requires an interpretation, that's where a lawyer should be considered.
So let me ask you a follow up question. Have there been instances where somebody came to you, asked you a question, and you've maybe directed them to a lawyer instead?
For example, this estate planning. People would come
Okay.
to me that, I own this business, me and my wife, and now I want to hand over to second generation. So yes, I can tell them that okay, the way to go about it is that there would be a state freeze. Your
Mm-hmm.
share will be converted to a preferred share. Whatever is the value till now, you will pay a capital gain on it, and and your next generation would be inducted in with new shares because that is more beneficial rather than selling your shares to them. That's what I can tell them out of the experience. But if they say okay, done deal, do it by
Mm-hmm.
me, I say no, I cannot. Go to a lawyer, have him prepare the legal documents. He will give me a letter of direction what to be done. I will execute it.
Okay. We're heading towards the end of the show, and I have two more questions. Number one, you have 30 seconds to give every cross border homeowner a piece of advice. Go for it.
Consult your tax professional, any tax professional. Take the valuation of your property and stay current on your tax liabilities. And final thoughts: it's not really worth to try to circumvent the law because you may or may not get caught, but that those sleepless nights are not worth it. So always stay compliant. That is in the long run in your best interest.
Amazing. Final question for you, Aamir. What do you think it means to be a homeowner? What does it mean to you?
Oh, okay. From the philosophical point of view, I would say um, people have attachment with the home. The kind of attachment they have with the home is probably I don't think there's any other asset they would have. Even that is probably most expensive asset they own or they would buy in their life. So the kind of attachment they have is possibly second to none. Maybe you might have that kind of attachment with your family, which is more intense with the family. But after the family, the next thing would be obviously home. Even if you own 5 properties and 4 of those you have never lived, but still you kind of feel that it's piece of your own in one way or the other. And that's why people are very touchy about it. And especially those, sometimes it makes more sense to sell the property. Sometimes due to market, sometimes due to your own personal situation.
Right.
You might be in a situation where you can untangle all those issues that have been created by selling one of those 5 properties. But people become touchy about it. So yeah, that's where it becomes tricky that they have sentiments about it. And if you ask them to let it go, that becomes a problem. So yeah,
Beautiful. Aamir, thank you so much for joining us today. Where
all right.
can people find you?
My website, Finnection.ca and .ae for UA. You guys can reach out over there. There's a link for free initial consultation. You can book an appointment. Once that appointment is done, usually I don't mind sharing my WhatsApp as well for consultation.
Mm-hmm.
We do paid consultation as well. That can be done. Usually, if there's a situation where you need a personalized advice, right? I suggest paid consultation. If you already know what to do and you just want me to execute it, then you don't need that consultation. We can just discuss the pricing of that part. So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so most easy way to reach out to me is my website. From website, you can book an appointment so that I have an idea. If somehow you are not able to book an appointment, you don't want to book an appointment or something else, you can write an email. That the email is also on the website. We can have a perfect face-to-face conversation and we can discuss.
Amazing. Folks, we're going to link all of that into the show notes or YouTube description below. That's a wrap on this episode of the Ontario Homeowners Show. Now, I don't know what resonated with you the most, but here's what I hope you took away. These people we bring on the show are change makers. They're out here doing the work that makes real life better. One home, one family, one conversation at a time. And if that's something you want more of, hit subscribe wherever you're listening. New episodes drop every week. And if you want the highlights, tools, and guest takeaways straight into your inbox, go to ontariohomeownershow.ca and leave us your name and email. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day, everyone.